My wife and I had struggled for years to have a child, so when we turned to IVF, I thought it was our last, fragile hope. But on the very day of the procedure, I caught her slipping in another man's sample, her first love. She thought she was outsmarting me, carrying his child into our home. What she didn't know was that I had already switched it back. I even replaced her egg with that of my ex-girlfriend. So when she finally gave birth, convinced she was cradling her old flame's child, I already knew the truth. That child, Charles, was mine. Years later, after returning from an overseas project with Charles by my side, I walked through our front door to find a crowd of distant relatives crammed into my living room, buzzing like it was some family summit. And in the middle of them sat Ethan, red-eyed, trembling, while my wife, Victoria, leaned against him, comforting him like he was the center of her world. I set my suitcase down and raised an eyebrow. "What's the occasion?" I asked, though I already knew the storm that was about to break. Charles, sharp as ever, folded his arms and glared at Ethan with pure disgust, sensing exactly who this man was. Then Ethan rose, tears streaming, and reached for my boy. "My son," he cried, "I am your real father." Charles recoiled like he'd touched fire. His voice was ice when he said, "My father's name is Sincere." And in that moment, I felt a surge of pride. My boy, raised by my hand, carrying my fire. I squeezed his shoulder, then drove my fist into Ethan's face. The sound cracked through the room like thunder. Victoria screamed, rushing to shield Ethan, her voice shrill, her hand raised against me. But before she could strike, Charles stepped forward and slapped her hand away. His words came low, steady, filled with the authority of a man twice his age. "Don't you dare touch my dad." The room froze. The relatives whispered like wolves scenting blood. Victoria finally stood tall, her eyes cold and calculating, and made her move. She announced to everyone that Charles was never mine, that during IVF, she had secretly chosen Ethan instead. Gasps rippled through the room. Opportunistic relatives muttered about inheritance, about stripping me of the family company, about passing power to Ethan. But I didn't flinch. I knew the truth. I knew every secret she thought she'd buried. And I had played the long game far better than she ever realized. So when she demanded a paternity test, when she sneered about divorce, I just smiled. Divorce? Fine. The empire was already mine. But Charles? Charles would always be my son. And no trick, no betrayal, no whispered lie in a crowded room could ever take that away. Just when the room had started to settle, the front door burst open. A boy, young, maybe college age, came rushing straight toward Charles, his voice trembling but loud enough to shatter the silence. "Brother." Everyone froze. A second father had already thrown the room into chaos, now a second son? The boy's resemblance to Ethan was undeniable. My gut twisted, I knew immediately. This was Victoria and Ethan's hidden child. So that's what her mysterious absences all those years ago had been about. She hadn't been resting, she'd been hiding him. My mother-in-law, seated at the head like a queen holding court, narrowed her eyes and asked the question hanging heavy over everyone. "Victoria, what is going on?" The boy's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "My name is Gabriel. I've always known about you, brother." He dared a glance at me, then lowered his head, as if afraid I'd scold him for existing. "Dad talks about you all the time, how handsome and brilliant you are." Ethan, of course, played his role to perfection. He clutched his chest, his face contorted in false sorrow. "Charles, my dear son, I've missed you so much. Gabriel has dreamed of meeting you. We've watched you from afar, cheering for you in secret." Gabriel nodded eagerly and pulled a bundle of photos from his pocket. He handed them to Charles like they were treasures. "I took these. At your graduation, after basketball practice, even during debates at school. I just wanted to be near you." Charles flipped through the pictures, his fingers stiff. His face darkened as realization set in. He'd been stalked for years. Victoria, ever calculating, seized the moment. She marched to my mother-in-law, her hand resting possessively on Gabriel's shoulder. "Mom, this is your grandson. Today, With everyone here as witness, please acknowledge him. She was smart. By dragging in every relative, she wasn't just springing a surprise son on us. She was staging a power play. She knew my mother-in-law's word carried more weight than mine. If she accepted Gabriel, the entire family would follow. Gabriel, quick to catch on, bowed his head and whispered, "Grandma." His voice cracked with practiced sincerity. My mother-in-law's eyes darted between me and the boy, heavy with conflict. I could feel her pity for me, her hesitation. I spared her the burden. "Victoria," I said evenly, "what you want isn't love for this boy. It's to shove him into the Liu family so he can inherit what doesn't belong to him. But listen carefully, whether Charles shares my blood or not, he is my only son. Every asset, every property, every stock, every share I hold, 20% of Liu Group included, will go to him." I turned to Charles. "Now tell me, would you rather stay with me or go to your mother and this so-called father?" Without hesitation, my son's voice rang clear. "Mom has a new son now. The assets won't be for me. Of course, I'll stay with Dad." My chest swelled with pride. That was my boy, sharp, loyal, unshaken. Across the room, Ethan's eyes lit up like a man staring at a gold mine. He whispered to Victoria, greed dripping from every word. I didn't need to hear it to know what they were plotting. Their scheme was simple: wrestle the company from me, then manipulate Charles into handing over his shares. Victoria straightened, her tone suddenly sweet, maternal. "Charles, don't worry. Your brother won't fight you for the inheritance. Everything will be yours." But her eyes flicked to Ethan. "You'll need to take a paternity test. If it proves Ethan is your father, you must acknowledge him." Charles shot me a look, reading me as easily as I read him. Then he nodded.
"Fine.
"But before the test, both of you will come with me to the notary office. You'll transfer every asset to my name, unconditionally." I nearly laughed aloud. My son had learned well. Promises meant nothing. Paperwork was power. The greedy relatives erupted in cheers, their eyes glittering like vultures circling a feast. Phones came out, calls were made, already rushing to set the notary. They saw a future filled with treasures they'd never earned. My mother-in-law leaned close, her voice hushed with worry. "Child, think this through. Don't rush into an asset transfer." I smiled gently, reassuring her. "Mom, trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing." And so, piece by piece, Victoria and I signed away everything, every property, every share, into Charles's name. Except for a small allowance to live on, the rest of it was his. At the notary's desk, Ethan and Victoria beamed, already picturing themselves riding on Charles's future success. They thought the game was won. But in truth, it had only just begun. Ethan leaned back with a pained look on his face, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "I've spent over 20 years raising your son. I don't need compensation, just let me hand the money directly to Charles. After all, he's the one I love most." Charles didn't miss a beat. With sharp wit in his eyes, he struck back. "Uncle Ethan, you've lived with my mom for more than 2 decades. You must have saved millions by now. Since we're already here at the notary, why not prove your sincerity? Otherwise, I might think you only care about the Liu family's assets, not me." The room went quiet. Ethan's smile froze. His pride and greed collided. Giving up money would wound him, but refusing would expose his intentions. With stiff hands, like flesh being peeled from his bones, he pulled out a card and shoved it toward Charles. "Of course, son. Your father loves you. Here's $5 million I've saved." Charles snatched the card without hesitation, then waved for the notary staff. Every move he made carried the calm confidence of someone far older than his years. But Victoria wasn't finished. To protect her plan, she dragged everyone to the National Forensic Center, an institution too authoritative to be swayed, or so she thought. She insisted on testing Charles, Ethan, and me, certain the truth would fall her way. I smirked at her naivety. "Since we're here," I added casually, "why not test you as well, Victoria?" Her face twisted in disbelief. "Are you insane? Charles is my son." Charles, though confused, Trusted me enough to press her. Mom, just do it. No harm proving it. Cornered by her own son's demand, Victoria had no choice but to comply. As we stepped out of the center, Gabriel appeared, clutching a bouquet like a lost puppy. Brother, he called, trying to hug Charles. But Charles shoved him away with disgust. Don't touch me. It's gross. Ethan rushed in to smooth things over. Charles, he's your brother. A family should love each other. Charles's eyes were ice. Wait for the results before you start claiming kinship. I didn't linger in their circus. Calmly, I turned to Victoria. Let's go. The divorce papers won't sign themselves. No custody battles. No asset disputes. Just a clean break. The Civil Affairs Bureau finalized it in record time. Ethan's eyes widened with joy. He hadn't expected me to let go so easily. He thought I would cling. But with Charles standing firmly at my side, his smugness turned into envy. When Charles stepped out to fetch the car, Ethan finally took a shot. His voice was bitter, mocking. Sincere, Victoria never loved you. Do you know why Charles was named Charles? Because my name, Ethan, has an E in it. That was her way of honoring me. Victoria pressed closer to him, her tone dripping with triumph. Once the paternity results come out, Charles will return to us. Naturally. Even Gabriel dropped his innocent act, sneering. All the money is in Charles's name now. When the results prove the truth, you'll be left with nothing, homeless. I didn't bother answering their provocations. But Victoria couldn't help revealing her hand. You've controlled the L group long enough. It's time for Ethan and me to take charge. I laughed, sharp and cold. So, it was always about the company. You used Charles as your ticket. Victoria didn't even flinch. So, what if I did? Once the results are revealed, I'll be the true master of the L group. I met her gaze without blinking. Let's see if fate agrees with you. They thought they had already won, schemes bursting like firecrackers in their heads. But they didn't realize they had never stood a chance. And soon enough, their arrogance spilled into the company itself. Gabriel stormed into the office, kicked the general manager out, and flung himself into the leather chair like a king. I'm the GM now, my brother is the chairman. The staff hesitated, unsure. No one dared move. No one but me. Throw him out, I ordered. Security stepped forward. Gabriel thrashed, spitting venom. How dare you touch me? My brother is the chairman. You bastard, you've been kicked out of the Liu family. You have no right here. He shoved at the guards, even tried swinging at me. But before I could put him in his place, Charles walked in. His voice was steel. What's going on here? Instantly, Gabriel's act flipped. He rushed forward with a pitiful face. Brother, thank God you're here. He's trying to kick me out. Charles didn't even blink. This is a company, not a playground. And I am not your brother. Ethan arrived just in time to add fuel. Charles, how can you treat your own blood this way? You need family support to run the company. Without us, you'll be crushed. Charles sneered. Then watch closely. Throw them both out. When softness failed, Ethan turned desperate, his voice loud and trembling. I'm Victoria's husband, Charles's biological father. This company belongs to me too. I cut him off, my tone razor sharp. Throw them out. And don't dirty the company again. This time, the guards didn't hesitate. Ethan and Gabriel were dragged out, shouting like madmen. Ethan's final words echoed down the hallway. Wait for the paternity results, Sincere. I'll make you beg me for a meal. I didn't even look back. Don't worry, I said quietly. I'm eager for the results too. And finally, the day came. Dressed in a sharp suit, I arrived at the forensic center, ready to watch their empire of lies crumble. Victoria had gathered every relative she could, hoping for a public humiliation. Before the results were revealed, I turned to her with a smirk. This is the center you chose. You won't dispute the results, right? Her chin lifted high. Of course not. I always keep my word. I nearly laughed at her blind confidence. She still had no idea how this would end. And then the technician appeared, results in hand. Ethan tightened his grip on Victoria's shoulders, voice low and solemn. Victoria, once the truth is revealed. Ethan stood there, flashing that smug, expectant smile, tossing a small box toward Charles. From now on, I'm your father. Anything you need, just tell Dad. Inside the box was a watch, a gift for recognizing him. But Charles didn't even glance at it. Cold, unwavering, he said, "No thanks. I only have one father, and that's Sincere." A warmth swelled in my chest. My boy, always by my side, unshakable. Just then, the technician returned, clutching 3 DNA test results. Ethan, Victoria, and Gabriel's eyes lit up like wolves who had sniffed blood, their gazes fixed on me with hunger, imagining my humiliation and their sudden rise to wealth and power. I couldn't help the laugh that threatened to escape. The technician cleared his throat and began to speak, savoring the tension. According to the DNA comparison between Mr. Ethan and Mr. Charles, he paused deliberately, stretching the silence, watching their nervous anticipation, their necks craned like predators straining to feast. And then, with calm finality, he said, "They are not biologically related." Time seemed to freeze. Victoria's eyes widened. A scream tore from her throat. Impossible. There must be a mistake. Ethan's face paled, terror creeping in as his confident facade crumbled. Gabriel snatched the report, desperate. "You must have misread it. Let me see." He stared, then sank into a chair muttering, How can this be?" I asked the technician to read the paternity results between Charles and me. According to the DNA comparison, Sincere is Charles's biological father. The room erupted into stunned disbelief. Victoria's face went white as paper. I could almost hear her blood run cold. I turned to her, calm and unyielding. "When you tried to swap the samples, I saw it, and I swapped my sperm back. Oh, and I replaced your egg with one from my ex-girlfriend." Silence. The weight of truth settled over everyone. My mother-in-law looked up, eyes wide with shock, struggling to reconcile the story. I faced Victoria, voice cutting through the tension. "Charles isn't your child. Congratulations. 20 years of motherhood, and you were raising someone else's son." Victoria's hands trembled as she snatched the paternity report, blood rising to her eyes. She lunged at me, screaming, "You scum!" I caught her mid-charge, pushing her down, staring coldly as Ethan clung to her in panic. "Victoria, if Charles isn't yours, then he isn't a Lou. The only rightful heir is Gabriel." Hope flared in Gabriel's eyes. He grasped Victoria's hand, thinking victory was his. But I wasn't done. Victoria looked up, malice in her eyes, and stumbled to her feet, spitting accusations at me. "He's the bastard child of Sincere and his ex-girlfriend. We can't let an outsider inherit the Lou family's assets." Ethan and Gabriel echoed her, rage and greed written all over their faces. "Throw Charles out." Even my mother-in-law, still processing, trembled. Her voice was hesitant, heavy with years of wisdom. "Sincere, is it true?" I felt a pang of sadness, but nodded. "It is." Victoria's outrage grew.
"Mom,
"You have to announce Gabriel as the heir." My mother-in-law's composure returned, her gaze sharp as a blade. "Do you know who Sincere's ex-girlfriend is?" Victoria faltered. "Who cares? Charles isn't our child." A calm authority rolled from my mother-in-law. "Sincere's ex is my daughter, Serafina. That makes Charles a Lou. He is the rightful heir." Her words hit like a thunderclap. The room froze. Family tradition dictated that the legitimate eldest child inherited the business. And in this case, the bloodline didn't lie. Victoria's face drained of color, shock and disbelief written across every line. Still clinging to denial, she shouted, "I don't believe it. Why should we trust you, Sincere?" I held up another paternity report, unwavering. "This is Charles's test with Serafina. If you doubt it, we can do a state-level verification. He is here, and he is the rightful heir." The relatives murmured, slowly acknowledging the truth. Ethan and Gabriel stood frozen, their elaborate plans crumbling like sandcastles in a storm. One by one, the opportunistic family members drifted away, leaving Victoria pale, seething, and momentarily powerless. She swallowed her pride and stepped forward, her voice soft but edged with manipulation. Sincere, I know you love me. You just don't approve of my ways, clubs, bars, being close to other men, right? And in that moment, the battlefield was set, not just for the Liu family's legacy, but for hearts, pride, and power. Victoria dropped to her knees, her voice trembling. I promise I won't contact Ethan again, please. Just let me stay in the Liu family. I looked at her, pity simmering beneath my calm. Victoria, you're wrong. I never loved you. Her face went pale, the color draining like life itself. What did you say? She stammered, disbelief twisting her features. Why did you always stare at me and insist on marrying me? She asked, voice shaking. I spoke with cold precision. Because you look like Serafina. I found comfort in your resemblance. Marrying you wasn't about love. It was to protect her legacy. You, posing as the Liu family's daughter, allowed me to enter the L group to prevent power grabs from other branches. Her knees buckled as the truth hit. So, Serafina, why was she favored over me? She whispered. I explained, steady and unflinching. She was blood to the family. When your sister had her accident, my father-in-law had no choice but to bring you into the family, given you were his illegitimate child. Victoria's devastation was palpable. She stumbled back, her voice barely a whisper. So, I was just a substitute all along. Everything she had built, her power, her illusion of control, collapsed in an instant. The charade we had played for 25 years finally ended, and the curtain fell. I had the servants pack her things and threw her out of the villa, leaving her with nothing but the bitter taste of her deceit. Meanwhile, I turned to my mother-in-law, her eyes bright with hope. Mom, I've been working with a foreign medical institute on a project to awaken coma patients. She gasped. I nodded. Serafina has responded well. She will wake up soon. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, My dear Serafina. Victoria, meanwhile, wandered back to the apartment she once shared with Ethan. But the moment she arrived, disdain met her. Ethan sneered. You fool. Now we have nothing. Victoria's temper flared. If you hadn't swapped the sperm, we wouldn't be here. Ethan's eyes widened in mock argument. You agreed to it. Shut up, she screamed. It's pointless now. What do we do with only 50,000? Ethan shrugged. Don't expect me to support you. Desperate, Victoria turned to me, seeking a plan. Ethan's mind flickered, and then he landed on one. The 5 million Charles had. Let's get it back, he said. They stumbled to Charles's apartment, ringing the doorbell endlessly. Finally, Charles opened the door unfazed. What do you want? He asked. Ethan pushed past him, demanding, Give me back my money. Charles didn't flinch. Why should I? Ethan trembled, anger flaring. It's mine. Charles, lounging as if the world owed him, replied calmly, Uncle Ethan, the 5 million was legally gifted to me. You're owed nothing. Overwhelmed, Ethan collapsed to the floor, clutching his chest, his world crumbling. Victoria screamed, Ethan, but it was too late. Charles calmly called 120, tending to the situation with the precision of someone who had already won. Their 5 million gone, Victoria and Ethan could only blame each other, spending their final 50,000 in bitter frustration. Later, I invited Charles out to dinner. On the way, I hummed a tune, light and carefree. Why are you so happy? He asked. I smiled, knowing the show I had prepared was about to unfold. From our private second-floor room, Charles watched through the glass as Victoria, dressed in a waitress uniform, served tables below. His eyebrow arched, skeptical. Is this it? I just smiled. Just wait and see. Moments later, Ethan appeared with a beautiful woman, laughing and flirting openly. Victoria froze, rage and shock etching her face. She demanded, Ethan, what are you doing here? He ignored her, continuing his intimate conversation. Her voice rose. I'm talking to you. He shrugged casually. What do you think I'm doing? Eating, obviously. Victoria's face turned crimson. Who is she? He laughed, shameless. Who cares? She's my girlfriend. And by the way, the baby you lost wasn't yours. I swapped it with hers. Victoria's soul seemed to drain, disbelief and despair consuming her. Beside him, Susan laughed, triumphant. Victoria's world collapsed. The man she loved had betrayed her, the child she raised wasn't hers, and 20 years of devotion lay in ruins. In a furious, desperate rage, she grabbed a knife from the kitchen and lunged at Ethan, screaming, "You ruined me! You ruined everything!" Blood stained his clothes as he cried out, falling to the floor. Charles watched in horror, while I sipped my tea, calm as the storm unfolded. The police arrived swiftly, taking Victoria away. Charles looked at me, stunned. "Dad, this is the show you wanted me to see?" I set down my tea, voice steady. "Yes. There's a lesson here, son. Never show mercy to your enemies." Charles frowned, confused. Isn't kicking her out enough? Why go this far? I met his gaze, voice edged with years of contained hatred. Because what happened to your mother wasn't an accident. Victoria set her up to fall at the construction site. Ethan cut the brakes on the truck. I've waited 25 years to watch them destroy themselves, all while staying calm and collected. And now, Charles, the lesson is complete. Without Ethan's fortune to cling to, his life unraveled fast. He slipped into the shadows, selling himself as a male escort just to survive. The irony was cruel. One of Charles's own classmates even hired him. Days passed, and for a moment, life seemed to settle into a fragile calm. But then came the phone call that shattered the stillness. The hospital. The doctor's voice trembled with news I never thought I'd hear again. "Serafina has woken up." My heart stopped. After 25 long years, she had finally opened her eyes. I rushed to the hospital with Charles and my mother-in-law, every step feeling like a lifetime of waiting was about to end. Inside the room, Serafina lay pale but alive, her eyes clear, her smile faint yet full of warmth. "Sincere," she whispered, her voice fragile but steady. "You look older." Tears blurred my vision. "You've been asleep so long," I said softly, my voice breaking. "We've waited for you." I turned, gesturing to the figures just outside the door. Charles and my mother-in-law, watching with held breath. Serafina's gaze lingered on Charles. "Who is this?" I explained gently. "He's our test tube baby." She blinked in surprise, then smiled, her expression softening as she looked at him with sudden, instinctive affection. "What's his name?" I answered through tears. "His name is Charles." Her lips curved into a tender smile, her voice a whisper of love reborn. "Charles, what a beautiful name."